I didn't think it was humanly possible, but Nike has outdone themselves yet again. After years of churning out bad jersey after bad jersey, the swoosh has reached a new low with this upcoming season's city designs. You might be thinking that I'm just saying that these are the worst collection of uniforms that we've ever seen, but I'm really not exaggerating. These are horrible, and honestly no one should be surprised. Think about it, Nike is forcing designers to come up with something new every single year, and has been doing so since 2017. So there's bound to be years like this where the ideas for the most part just fall flat. Today, I'm going to run through all 30 of this year's City Edition jerseys, and rank them from best to worst. And as we go through all of these, you will quickly see how dry Nike's designs have gotten, and how often they cut corners when putting these together. We'll mostly be basing each placement simply off of how the design looks, but we'll also take into consideration how it looks alongside the team's other jerseys at the moment, as well as any historical significance. And since the vast majority of this video is going to be me hating on Nike, I figured I'd say some nice things about them to start, with the undeniably great tier. At number 1, we have the Toronto Raptors. And Nike honestly went crazy with this one. To start, they put a primary black color over the jagged stripes of the late 90s uniform. The logo on those old school jerseys had a cartoon looking raptor dribbling a basketball. That mascot is back on this edition, but instead of him just simply dribbling, he's doing the Vince Carter in between the legs pose from the dunk contest back in 2000. Not only is he doing the iconic dunk, but the Raptor is also wearing the exact jersey that Vince wore that night. So in a way, this is referencing two different throwbacks. Just an incredible way to put a spin on their old branding, while simultaneously paying tribute to the player who made their franchise relevant in the first place. This is honestly one of the best jerseys that Nike's ever made. Like the Raptors, the Utah Jazz are doing a modern take of their classic purple jerseys from the 90s, and I think they honestly did a great job. Unlike some of the other ones you'll see further down this list, Nike utilized a gradient design, with the mountain fading into the purple across the left side. The team name on the front is pretty basic, with Utah simply written across the chest, but it honestly looks clean with the mountain design behind it. It's recognizable enough to see the homage it pays to the past, but fresh enough to see that it's something new, which is exactly what I think a city jersey should do. And the last one that I think is undeniably great is this new Pelicans jersey. They used this same neon outline from their City Edition jerseys last year, but everything else on that one was just over a black jersey, which made it super boring. This time around, the lettering is in that yellow that we're all familiar with, and the primary color of the jerseys is cool bluish purple. I also like this design here that's seen throughout as well. One of my common complaints with Nike jerseys is that they're generally far too minimal. So I have to give them credit for all these small but noticeable changes that give the uniform so much more life. And that's it in terms of the jerseys that I really think are great. Up next, we have the above average jerseys. I think all of these are aesthetically pleasing, but there are one or two things that are holding them back from me truly loving them. To kick off the above average tier, we have the Atlanta Hawks. To start with my complaints, this is the first of many City Edition jerseys that we're going to see that are primarily white. And I may be old fashioned, but I prefer an alternate jersey like a City Edition to have some sort of color, while the white jerseys are reserved as a home uniform. But even though this is one of the many 2025 City jerseys that is white, they did try something unique with this jersey, and I have to respect that. The design is a pretty interesting take on their red and white jerseys from the 80s, but instead of the red fill and yellow outline, there's this light blue fill and black outline. And for those who didn't know, Atlanta briefly used to wear this shade of blue back in the 60s. It's a fusion of two separate jerseys from 40 and 60 years ago. It isn't anything mind-blowing, but I think it's overall very clean and does a good job of tapping into its historical roots. Up next, we have the Orlando Magic. Continuing with the theme of combining a team's previous elements, this jersey utilizes the font of the 2000s Magic logo, while also using the star in place of the letter A like they did in the 90s. I think these are much better than the rest of Orlando's current jerseys, and definitely nicer than last year's City Edition, as that one was pretty much the same as their Road or Icon jerseys from 2024. My one complaint is the fact that it's pretty clear from these last two editions here that Nike is starting to move away from the iconic Magic blue when designing these jerseys, which I'm not a fan of. While it does undoubtedly look good, not having the blue does take away from the overall branding a bit in my opinion, but overall, definitely a solid entry. The Hornets come in at number 6, and I had a hard time figuring out where to rank this one. On one hand, it is one of the nicer designs I've ever seen from the Hornets. That minty blue is so unique, and it really helps distinguish them from the many other teams that have light blue jerseys. On the other hand, this is a complete reskin of their 2021 City Edition jerseys. Only this time, they replaced the Buzz City on the front with the word Charlotte. While this is undoubtedly very lazy, I do think they made the right decision here. I'm not a Hornets fan, so I could be wrong, but I feel like the whole Buzz City term is kind of odd and forced. It almost seems like they made a half-hearted attempt to try and make it synonymous with their franchise, similar to how Golden State goes hand in hand with the Warriors. They never really try to do anything real to push this term aside from throwing it on their jerseys on and off over the last 10 years, so I'm in favor of them rectifying this mistake. But I do have to keep in mind that they did almost next to nothing aside from change the word on the front. This jersey shows how being slightly different can go a really long way. For the Pistons City Editions this year, they have this unique tan color that I really like. It may feel a little bit out of place with the Pistons branding, but I honestly can't remember any other team that had this exact color in the past, besides maybe the Bucks. The logo is also in a script font that I enjoy as well. Not a whole lot that I don't like about this jersey, aside from the fact that I'm not so sure that it screams Detroit basketball, but definitely a solid entry from Nike's part. This Suns jersey just felt like missed potential, so the whole basis for this year's design was that it was inspired by the 1995 All-Star Game unis. That game was not only played in Phoenix, but also had these amazing uniforms that did such a great job of representing the Suns. This could have been a perfect mashup of the old and now, as this Suns 2025 City jersey has the Valley written across the chest, which is what was also used for these amazing jerseys back in 2021 and 2022. They added this star from the 95 uniform, which looks great, but it doesn't look like the cactus that was included on the 95 version is going to be there on this one, which drives me crazy. If you're going to reference this jersey, why not finish the job? If they did, it could have fought for the number 1 spot on this list, but even though they didn't quite stick the landing, it still looks really good to the naked eye. One of the worst teams in the NBA this upcoming season will ironically have one of the better entries on this list. It hasn't been officially confirmed yet, but it seems that this is going to be the second straight year that the Nets have collaborated with the Brooklyn-based designer KAWS. Last year, he did a great job incorporating his unique style into the jersey, while still making it feel like it belonged to the Nets. He was honestly successful in doing it again this year as well, but it just feels like an overall step down in my opinion. I prefer how there were color patches utilized throughout the jersey last year, as opposed to this year's edition that only utilizes those colors in the outline of the name across the chest. Speaking of that, the way the letters were spelt last year were bent up and down, which I really liked. It's just a little bit more muted across the board this year. However, it still definitely looks good, so it deserves its spot in the above average tier. And that's all for the jerseys that I genuinely like. Next up, we enter the average tier. All of these I feel pretty indifferent on. They aren't anything particularly great or memorable, but are head and shoulders better than all of the ones in the 2 tiers below these. This is the 4th time in 5 years that the Bucks are going with a blue City jersey. And as you'll see many times in this tier, I really don't understand why Milwaukee is blue. The team claims that they're symbolizing the connection between Lake Michigan and the city's 3 rivers, whatever that means. There isn't anything inherently bad about these uniforms, but it's definitely the least memorable out of all their recent blue entries. Like the Bucks, I really have no idea why the Grizzlies are going to have a red uniform. This is also the same exact design as their 2016 alternative jersey, but instead of the plain white lettering from 9 years ago, it's now a bit gray with a faint blue and yellow outline. They're fine. I really just don't get why the Grizzlies have a red uniform in the first place. Apparently it plays to their roots in Canada, but it really seems like a half-hearted attempt just to make the jersey red. If they're going to honor their Canada roots, I'd greatly prefer if they reference their Vancouver days, as opposed to Canada as a whole, because the Grizzlies never felt like Canada's team. The Rockets didn't do too much with their City Edition this year. A plain white jersey with a red H-town across the chest, going for a comic book lettering with a thick black outline. People probably won't remember this jersey very much 5 years from now, but it's fine for what it is. With the Clippers moving into a new arena and doing a total rebrand, they decided to play it safe with their City Edition this season, as it's just a light blue version of their City Edition jersey from last year. I said it before and I'll say it again in this video, this is Nike being lazy, doing nothing but switching out the color. While this normally would piss me off, I kind of get it, as their 3 other uniforms got a refresh this year as well. On top of that, the Clippers did wear this light blue color throughout most of the 70s. I don't love it, but it's far from the worst jersey that we're going to look at in this video. And you've definitely heard this already, but there isn't much new when it comes to the Thunder City Edition jerseys this year as well. They brought back the exact same color scheme that they did last year, but instead of there being this design that was on the front of the 2024 edition, they moved it onto the side panels. To replace it, they have a solid black as the primary color, and the big OKC logo was also swapped out for Oklahoma across the chest. I guess it's fine. I probably prefer last year's jersey because the logo on that one stood out a little bit more, but it's passable. Lazy, lazy, lazy. I really have next to nothing to say about this Trailblazers jersey. They took last year's edition, added some dots and square blocks, and made the Rip City lettering white as opposed to red. Just another case of Nike making changes that don't need to be done. Continuing to focus on some of the lazy designs, we have the Mavericks. It's a complete recycle of last year's jersey and was just flipped to white. Is it ugly? No, but there's just no redeeming qualities about it. Nothing really interesting at all here. Again, we have another reskin of a previous jersey, as this is just a white version of the Navy Blue City Edition from 2022. Now the Sixers have historically had pretty solid uniforms over the years, but this is just a watered down version of one of the team's more forgettable designs. The Wizard City edition this year is actually an improvement from last year, but that's not saying too much. In 2024, they had this stupid black and gray jersey with hits of orange and light blue in the collars and lettering. It just didn't feel like a Wizards jersey at all to me. This time, they kept everything in place, stripped the weird coloring, replacing it with red, and then made the rest of the jersey white. It definitely looks cleaner, and the red does make it feel like a Wizards jersey a little bit, but there's just nothing really interesting going on here at all. And again, another jersey that is primarily white, as if we don't have enough of that already this year. The Pacers are once again doing a graffiti-themed jersey for 2025, because no place screams graffiti culture quite like the Midwest city of Indiana. At a glance, these are okay. For the millionth time this year, Nike just flipped the colors around from last year's edition, making this one primarily white. What a shocker. I don't hate it, I just can't get over how random the fact is that they're honing in on this graffiti design. It's just something that I really don't see sticking long term. That's all for the average tier. I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts about these, because they just didn't stand out to me at all for the most part. And now we move into the ugly tier. These jerseys, in my opinion, are something that I would not want to see on my TV while watching games this season. To start, we have the Sacramento Kings, who are doing a poor version of going back to their past. I get that these were their old colors when they were the Rochester Royal, but the red and blue just feels so out of place compared to their current branding of primarily purple. And on top of that, this year's City Edition is just so boring in every way. At least last year they had that unique style of writing Kings vertically across the side of the jersey. Now it's just blandly written across the chest with nothing unique to it at all. I wish they would try something related to the Light the Beam movement that they've had these last couple of years. But instead, we got a downgrade of an idea that's already been beaten to death. This is one of the more underwhelming jerseys on the entire list. With Victor Wembanyama quickly becoming one of the next faces of the league, I was really hoping that the Spurs would get a solid entry that would sell a ton to go hand in hand with his rapid ascension. However, Nike cut corners yet again, and I found a comment on the Spurs subreddit that just perfectly encapsulates what this jersey is. The same as last year with one drop of blue dye. I mean, seriously, they couldn't even be bothered to fully change the color. This year's Knicks City Edition is pretty much everything I hate about Nike basketball jerseys. So first of all, they're lazy, as all they did was make last year's City Edition white. Second of all, they're doubling down this ugly layered text that just doesn't look good in my opinion. One of the few benefits of all these new designs coming out every year is that Nike can quickly pivot from the ones that don't land. In theory. But of course, they were too tone deaf to realize these don't work. And they double down on it. I live right outside of New York City, and can promise you that I never see people walking around wearing these. To continue with the trend of doubling down on a bad idea, the Nuggets flipped their 5280 black uniform from last year to yet another white design this year. It would be one thing if the front of the jersey was just going to have this number, which signifies the altitude in Denver for those who don't know. But it looks so disjointed and messy when the player's number is added also. If there's one thing that Nike loves to do, it's to give a random team a light blue uniform. And that's exactly what they did here. The Cavs have become the 13th team since Nike took over to get a light blue jersey. That's legit almost half the league. And now Cleveland has joined the likes of the Bulls, Suns, and Trailblazers as teams who got a light blue jersey for quite literally no reason. Given the fact that they've been primarily white, black, and maroon since 2018, it's just so out of place to have this one next to all their other uniforms that they're going to be wearing this season. As the last team in this tier, we have the Chicago Bulls. To start, this is just a completely recycled design from not their own team, but from the Mavericks, who wore this in 2021. Like almost a complete carbon copy. Second of all, why do the Bulls have a gold jersey? There's absolutely nothing gold about their team or their branding. Now or ever. It just doesn't make any sense. I could maybe see the vision if the Bulls just won the championship, and they give each team that won the title from the season prior a gold jersey, but they were completely irrelevant last year. And my final and most important point is that it is just boring. Bulls straight across the chest in the most boring font you've ever seen. The lettering doesn't even have the slight curve like the other Bulls jerseys. Design isn't my background, but I'm positive I can come up with something more creative than this. That wraps up the ugly tier. I wish this was the worst that Nike had to offer, but unfortunately, there's an entire level below these ones. We have now reached the historically bad jerseys, the hideous tier. If Nike's tyranny over the NBA ever ends, these are the ones that people are going to remember, but for all the wrong reasons. Starting with the Warriors, this is literally a Denver Nuggets jersey. With the navy blue primary color, along with the yellow numbering and lettering, it looks like something you would see Jokic and Murray wear, not Steph and Draymond. Even the color on the lettering is off. On the cuff of the sleeves, you can see that it's the typical bright Warriors yellow that we all know. And then on the chest of the jersey, it's a much darker shade of yellow. These are just flat out garbage to me. This is the triple whammy of things I hate. A recycled design, a primarily white color, and that stupid gradient that Nike loves to do. To start, this jersey is just a flip from last year's design. Last year, Minnesota had this weird mountain-like gradient take up most of the space on the jersey. This time, that space is white and the design is on the upper third of the jersey. The gradient on this year's design is a bit different though, if that's even the right term. There are these odd hits of blue around the area where the black and the white colors meet. It looks so thrown together and disjointed, I can't imagine Wolves fans are going to like this much at all. Like the Knicks, Nike messed with something that didn't need to be touched with the Lakers jersey. As one of the most two iconic franchises in all of basketball, the Lakers quite simply don't need a new alternate jersey every year. Because when they do, we get this weird gradient design that feels so childish and tacky, especially next to their other iconic uniforms. Not only is this gradient ugly, but I hate the fact that it says Lake Show instead of Lakers across the chest. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Back when Nike first took over, they used to crank out classic after classic with their Miami Vice themed jerseys for the Heat. But now, they're in the midst of a series of awful city jerseys that honor Heat culture. Something like that can be cool when it's not spoken of, and it's something that's truly organic. It isn't cool when it's plastered over a jersey for a marketing campaign. When the Heat wear these, it just feels like they're trying to acknowledge that they're cool in a way, if that makes sense. It comes off as so corny and forced. On top of that, this super bright shade of red is just hideous as well. It would be one thing if it was only this stupid Heat culture phrase that was here, but on top of that, this is also just one solid color of an eyesore. No creativity, no redeeming qualities, just Heat culture. Last but not least, we are the defending champion Boston Celtics. Now you would think Nike would put together some effort forward for one of the most popular franchises in basketball that just came off of a title. But no, we got this abomination right here. Everything about this is wrong. First of all, why is it neon? Since the inception of its existence, the Celtics have been Kelly green. It was annoying when they wore this darker green a couple of years ago, but at least this jersey looked decent overall. It was just off in terms of color. Not only is this one miscolored, it is obnoxious with the neon lettering and stripe on the side. Second, there's nothing going on here at all. Just a straight line that says Celtics across the chest and yet another boring font. This minimalism, if you want to call it that, makes the neon stand out so much more, making you realize how out of place it is. Like many others on this list, it feels unfinished. But not only that, it's totally out of whack compared to the Celtics' typical branding, and is just unflattering to look at due to the neon coloring. And that's every City Edition jersey ranked from 1 to 30. For those who haven't been counting, we got 10 white jerseys and 12 recycled designs. It's honestly just sad for us consumers. Hopefully if someone at Nike sees this, they can learn from the many unhappy fans that are out there and start putting some more passion into the designs going forward. But realistically, they'll probably just continue giving teams these dumb gradients, light blue primaries, and recycled designs from years past. And that's all I have for you guys today. Let me know in your comments what your favorite and least favorite jersey is from the ones we looked at. Subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys in the next video.